Hey, this is Dr. Amy Lynn from Vision Dynamics back again. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about dry eyes. It's a very complicated situation for most people, and unfortunately it's very hard to solve if we don't get to the root of the problem, and it's actually very detrimental to somebody's daily life, unfortunately, because the discomfort can really interfere with people's lives and their vision. So let's go ahead and talk about the basics first of how the eyes are. So you've got the front, the middle, and the back of the eyes. The front part is mostly what controls the comfort level of your eyes. So the eyelids, how the tears drain and are made. There's also the eyelid structure and what that contributes. There's also the cornea, the conjunctiva, the sclera, as well as the areas, what we call the tear meniscus around the eyes. So the first thing to understand about dry eyes is that it can be caused by many reasons. Not just one, not just 5 reasons, 10, 20 different reasons happening all at the same time in many cases. And it starts with talking about just the structure piece of it right here in the eyes. When we blink, what happens is tears are made, and then they kind of get whisked and moved around the eyes and distributed, and then they drain out of the nasolacrimal duct here. If any of that doesn't happen, the tear being made and made in a healthy manner, it not swishing around in the right time in the right place, or not draining out, and then therefore the cycle continues, what happens is then you will lose the moisture that's needed. And just like looking at a fish tank with water, you can see clearer through liquid. It actually does affect how you see as well. So let's go ahead and break that down a little bit. Tears being made right up here in the lacrimal glands. What happens is there are nerve signals that tells it to go ahead and make the tears naturally. Luckily, we don't have to think about it too much. However, for different reasons, that may not happen. Most commonly is an immunocompromised situation or inflammatory issues. Some of those are arthritis. There's so many that I can just name off, but basically the immune system alone or inflammatory system alone can stop the tears from being made. Secondly, even if they were made, if your eyelid structure is not necessarily open, close, and or we forget to blink all the way, and the pressure of us blinking and pulling away actually pulls the tears and the oils out of the eyes to mix in there. If that doesn't happen, then we don't have even tears or evenly distributed tears. The third part of that is the nasolacrimal duct. So when we cry, we have a lot of nasal run as well, and that's because the entire system is connected. Because they're connected, the job of that is to go ahead and drain the tears out. There are situations where people say, well, I have all this tears coming out of my eyes. Don't tell me I have dry eyes. Well, actually what's happening is you do have dry eyes because it's so liquidy, and for whatever reason the nasolacrimal duct here is plugged, and so it runs out of your eyes and evaporates that way. Again, many layers. Another part of it to remember is that along the lower lids as well as the upper lids, there are these glands that look like fingers like this kind of inside, microscopically, of which optometrists can view. They are called meibomian glands. One of the most common dry eye causes is where those oils that are supposed to be made by those finger-like projections called the meibomian glands are not made, and or the glands stop working because they've been plugged up for too long, and therefore oils don't come out. Okay? Think of a toothpaste, and you don't cap the toothpaste, and over time it hardens basically at the tip, and you can no longer squeeze out the toothpaste. Same thing there. Healthy oils are supposed to come out and distribute into the eyes, and when that doesn't happen, then you have an unhealthy tear film. Now remember, the tear film is made of 3 layers, okay? I call it the wet stuff, the sticky stuff, and the oily stuff. And those are made from different parts of the eye, the oil here and the watery here as well. So what happens is if they're made or one of them's not working, your tears can become unbalanced. You need some watery, some sticky, some wet. Why? The watery stuff basically is your moisture. The oily is to keep all of that from evaporating too fast. And the sticky is basically to help the tears moisturize your eyes. Okay, so if you keep those in mind, and the doctors, what we do is we look at each layer and we look at how the structure of the eyelids are, how you blink. Maybe the drains are plugged, maybe it's too wide open, maybe your eyes don't close all the way. You know, by the way, there are several studies that show that we forget to blink while we're on electronics or while we're concentrating, but especially on electronics. And so what happens is if we forget to blink, guess what? Then you're not distributing those tear film around. And then the other piece to think about is not just your health, such as the inflammatory diseases that one might have, or the structural blinking, or the tears not being made evenly. There are other issues as well that can come up, but those are the most common ones that come up. Okay, by understanding which part of that is happening, whether it's mechanical or the gland's not working, or basically super basic, that's what's happening here. Then we can then go into treatment. Okay, I've been on some tear forums where there has not been any doctors monitoring those tear forums. And unfortunately, I'm very disappointed to see all these different miraculous cures that they discuss. Oh, try this oil, try avocado oil in your eyes. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there. And, quite frankly, none of them, they might not be wrong, but they're also fixing something that may not be necessarily the wrong thing. So, think about tear film. Think about the mechanics. Think about maybe within the tear film what needs to be replenished. For example, if it's an oil issue, well, putting water in there is not going to help. Putting any over-the-counter eye drops that say artificial tears is not necessarily going to help that. It'll wet your eyes and you'll think you're helping yourself, but if there's no oil to hold in the moisture, you're still going to have dry eye issues. Okay. Another thing to think about would be the preservatives that come with those artificial tears. Unfortunately, with our retail world, in order to keep something that they have manufactured on the shelf for a while at your, I won't name the names, but your retail stores longer, for a longer shelf life, they do have to add in preservatives. Those preservatives actually will exacerbate your dryness, because you're putting in something that's going to dry your eyes out. And quite frankly, it will make your tears even more imbalanced. I did have experiences where people got tears from all over the world, different places. And one of them was from a country that claimed that the minty feel is supposed to be good. Well, they come with alcohol as well. And so the patient had described it as, I feel clean. Well, that's why you feel clean. You're putting a little alcohol in your eye. But what does alcohol do? We never really wash our hands with alcohol pre-COVID, right? Because it dries out your eyes, right? So you don't ever want to do that. Any other over-the-counters, whereas the intention is good, also, unfortunately, profit is good too. So just kind of watch out for that. There are products that we do recommend very highly, and that is because we have actually tested it. I have actually tested it myself. I have dry eyes. Separately, my dry eyes are caused by, I believe, LASIK. I love that I had LASIK. My LASIK lasted really, really well for the vision piece of it. It's been 20 years exactly now, and it didn't really start bothering me until year 18 or so. But so it's really worth it. So nothing to say that LASIK is bad. However, they do the laser cuts, and they does sever the corneal nerves. And there is some talk about how those nerves are supposed to trigger tear production, and maybe the nerves are mixed up somehow after they've been severed, and so we end up with dry eye. And that's another topic, because LASIK can cause some other issues too. So there's pros and cons on that. But in the meantime, what I have tested and I love, and there's no commercial here, this is truly just what I use. It's called Oasis Tears Plus, and it's available from our office, special order, or it's available online, I believe, for more. But the reason that it's good is because it's a pure glycerin with no preservatives. What glycerin does, that I tell my patients, is that it holds on to all three layers in your eyes, and it kind of keeps it moist all in the entire time. It holds the wet stuff, the sticky stuff, and the oily stuff kind of in your eyes, so it's more like an intense moisture that stays in your eyes, and therefore you can see and feel better. Okay, just like when we're thirsty, what happens is by the time you're thirsty, there are studies that show you're probably 60% dehydrated already. And so the same thing with dry eyes. By the time you're feeling it, it's pretty bad in my microscope when I see it. So, just kind of be aware of that. There are a lot of home remedies that can help, but they do come back to what is the cause. All right. Hopefully that answers some of your questions. If you have any, please do ask. I'm here to help you. And then if you have any other questions more specific to your own condition, please feel free to go to your optometrist nearby. They are the doctors with an OD after their names. Okay, thank you and take care. Have a good one.